conversation. And as you do that online, let me have another interesting conversation here in studio with my panel of advocates. Nice to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Looking
Betty.
sharp. So, of course, on my immediate right is Jesse Odwor, and in the middle, Moses Chelanga. I'm sure he's not new to you. And of course, Duncan Okach, also an advocate. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. So let's start with that question that we're asking, our viewers. As Chief Justice David Maraga takes over office, what is the one thing that you want him to focus on as he begins?
Betty, thank you for having me here. The first thing I think the CJ will have to focus on will be the wars, as you clearly point out, the war in the judiciary.
Right.
This is given the fact that the last ruling Mutunga did in the Supreme Court actually brought to the public the division in the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land. So the first task actually of the President of the Supreme Court will be to find harmony and to unify the Supreme Court of the Republic of Kenya.
All right.
That will be the first task he needs to do.
And how important is it, Moses? And is that your top priority for him as he takes over office?
Yeah, I mean, that would be one of the priorities in the expectations of the next Chief Justice. But also, I would also, my expectation is informed by yesterday's accountability forum at the State House, where the President was very evasive, and every state officer was saying that was trying to pass the buck in terms of fighting against corruption. And everyone was pointing at the judiciary. That judiciary is the organ of state which is delaying or which is an impediment in fight against corruption. But that, I may not agree with them, but also, apart from...
You don't agree with that?
I may not agree with them, because, I mean, it is a fight of corruption is a consultative effort. You cannot just put it on the judiciary.
In the judiciary.
It ends in the judiciary eventually. So that is also one of the... So that comes to my point that the next Chief Justice should come and clean out this issue of credibility crisis, that judiciary, are Kenyans trusting the Kenyan judiciary?
Okay.
And then secondly also that corruption is creeping back into the judiciary. And the Chief Justice should be able to firmly deal with the issue of corruption in the judiciary and also in the whole country.
All right.
Yes.
Now, Duncan, let me engage you. I mean, this whole issue about credibility is something that is not new to Kenyans. We've had credibility, confidence in the judiciary for such a long time. So evidently, Dr. Willie Mutunga was not able to achieve that because we're still talking about it. Do you think that David Maraga is in that position? And what does he bring to the table as David Maraga?
Look, Betty, that is true. Dr. Willie Mutunga actually did his best. His best may not be what everyone else would have expected.
Right.
But give it to him. He actually tried. He did his best, and we have actually seen a lot of changes, positive, towards the fight against corruption and the delivery of justice. Comparing his tenure and him as a person to the Chief Justice, who I wish to take this chance to congratulate officially for being the 14th Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, we have interrogated him severally, and there are issues that come to fore.
Right.
The very reason why the JSC thought it wise to bring an outsider in the name of Justice William Mutunga to head this particular judiciary was because they thought the disease was very well enshrined within the institution. It had already been institutionalized, such that the only way to cure this was an introduction of an outsider.
Right.
And to me, if an outsider could not have actually met the exact expectations of the Republic, I highly doubt that an insider who is in the name of the Chief Justice...
Really? Is that really true?
It is
Jesse,
true.
do you agree with him that it's impossible?
No. I disagree with my learned friend, Okach.
Yeah.
The mere fact that Justice Maraga has been part of the judiciary actually works for him.
Yes.
This is the mere fact that the people he's going to deal with, the judges, are his colleagues. This is somebody who has been a judge for over 15 years. He knows these are his colleagues, and he knows how the system works. Rather than bringing in an outsider, of course, saying rather branding the former CJ Mutunga an outsider doesn't even go well so much because
Okay.
he was also in the legal profession, his
Yes.
one profession.
Yes.
But then fast forward, Justice Maraga has been a judge of the High Court, then moved to the Court of Appeal, meaning he's worked through the system, he knows how the system works. Then you realize that if you look at the stations that he has headed as the residing judge, he's really worked well. So I think he has what it takes to reform the judiciary.
All right, let's talk about, okay, Moses.
I don't agree with my colleague that I want to give a chance to Honorable Justice Maraga
Yeah.
because I mean we haven't seen what he has done yet. Mutunga did his part. I mean he had his own weaknesses, but he did his best.
Yes.
So I think I want to give him a chance. I don't want. I mean it is not written anywhere that you have to be an outsider to be able to fight this cancer.
Yes.
This is someone who knows the system. And in a light note, is the first judge held as a chief justice.
Maybe that will help.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe, yeah.
I mean, we have an Opus Day who heads the Central Bank of
Yes,
Kenya.
yes, yes.
Maybe,
Maybe, just
he's
maybe.
he's a chemotherapy.
To the cancer in the... Okay, So, okay, fine. So one of the things that, of course, we'll remember, Dr. Willie Mutunga about is when he came out and said that, he's not able to do his job properly because of cartels. This cartels. I mean, this word is something that, as Kenyans we've had for so many years, and we still continue to hear it. Do you think that David Maraga will be able to crack this issue of cartels?
I mean, this cartel thing, we've been having it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's actually corruption in another language.
Yes.
The president yesterday, you saw him, he was very helpless. He said that, what do you want me to do? I've given you everything. So you could find that this is a president who has been held at ransom
By the same
by the same cartels. In the judiciary, at the same time, I mean, during the Mutunga time, Mutunga was quite a hands-off guy. He was very much trusting. And during people used his kindness to entrench their own parallel systems within the judiciary.
Yes.
We hope that Honorable Justice Maraga will be hands-on and be able to fight these cartels.
All right.
But it's not going to be easy because this is a parallel system. I mean, most of us in the legal profession, I'm just saying, some of us in the legal profession are also culprits of this cartel. It is not just the judiciary, but also the bar, as the law society of Kenya. Because for every corruption that happens in the judiciary, there is a lawyer involved. For every corruption that is in the judiciary, there is a member of a public involved.
All right.
For every corruption that happens, there may also be a politician involved.
Okay.
So I think that it is not a singular duty of the Chief Justice,
Okay.
but he has to give that political goodwill that I am ready to dismantle any fiefdoms and cartels within the judiciary.
Now, Duncan, Moses has said something very interesting, that Mutunga was a really kind heart. I mean, he was very, he was easygoing, you could say that. And, David Maraga does not seem anything different. He's very soft-spoken. Do you think that he has the authority and the gusto to go after these cartels, these cartels, of course, positioned as corruption, under the banner of corruption?
And Betty, that statement alone actually justifies my earlier statement. Compare the
You're
two
still
in
on it.
actual sense, you'll find that Mutunga was even stricter than Maraga. He may have achieved a lot, and I give it to him in terms of being the presiding judge at the Court of Appeal in Kisumu, Mombasa, and Nakuru.
Yes.
But there is no radical decision, save for the decision that he made in as far as Justice Mutava is concerned. And what he's actually indicating in as far as the cartels are concerned is already a manifestation that David Maraga has already given a concession that these cartels will continue having their day. And I say
Why
that...
do you say that?
I say that...
Well, how so?
They'll have their chance to
No,
react,
I want you
but I'll put
to
my
qualify
facts on the
that.
table.
Yeah.
I say that in view of what happened in the Parliamentary Commission, that is the Legal Affairs Commission, when they were interrogating him, and Parliament at large, they had very specific interests, and they put those interests to Maraga. They never put interest in as far as the common Wanjiku and Atieno are concerned.
What interest were these?
They asked him and told him, what will you do in as far as what the courts are actually doing in terms of giving injunctions on parliamentary issues, giving orders that will injunct Parliament and as such. If his answer would have been, I will leave the courts to be liberal, let them make those decisions, I can tell you they will not have unanimously voted for him. But he actually said, true, I will go and do something about that. That is already agreeing that there's a problem. But ideally, that will actually mean prefecting these particular courts and working within the whims of the likes of Parliament. The judiciary should be free to make their decisions independently. Not even the Chief Justice has the right to interfere with the decision of a judge if the judge is sitting properly as a judge and being guided by the law and the facts. But if Parliament tells him, this is the issue we have, what will you do about it? And he says there's something I'll do about it. Already Parliament is a cartel as a whole, and he has already said, I'll do something about it.
Parliament is a cartel.
Yes.
Okay, Jesse, please react to, is it true that, you know, he's already been bagged?
No. I disagree again with my learned colleague Okach. I don't think the first shot that Maraga took actually by the tribunal he headed with regard to Justice Mutsava, was to actually recommend to the president that he wasn't suitable to be a judge. That speaks a lot because this is his colleague. For you to do that and look at your colleague in the eye and tell him you're not fit to judge, that actually tells us the caliber of which person he is.
But Duncan says that's just the only instance that he's made such a...
No, that is not the only instance. It's even good that Okach father mentioned the stations that Justice Maraga has presided over as the presiding judge, the president judge. Kisumu, Court of Appeal, Nakuru. He did a fantastic job. For you to do that and be able to pass the bar at the Judicial Service Commission interview, to come on top of all other people who applied and be approved by Parliament. With regard to parliamentary approval, when he was asked about what Okach is saying about protecting Parliament interest, it is common knowledge that the Chief Justice cannot interfere with the duties of other judges. He really exercises administrative functions with regard to other judges. Even at the Supreme Court, where he is the president, he only has one vote. Therefore, with regard to administrative, yes, he can do something. But with regard to judicial functions, then the CJ cannot interfere with any independence of any other particular judge.
All right. You defend him so fiercely. I understand that you're his student.
I had an occasion of training under him judicial attachment in Nakuru when he was the presiding judge. And he's somebody I know personally. I think he's a good guy.
No. No wonder. Everybody has their own opinion there.
But I mean, it would be unfair to say that the Chief Justice nominee said that he would be able to acquiesce to parliamentary pressures. I mean, what he said is that it's a concern. But even assuming for the purpose of argument that the Chief Justice would be able to do something and be able to, he cannot do that because the judges, individual judges, have decisional judicial independence to make their own decisions. So I think what the Chief Justice was talking about is that in the tenure of Honorable Justice Mutunga, there was acrimony between Parliament and the judiciary.
Yes.
Judicial independence does not mean antagonism. Does not mean you antagonize all other all other government organs.
Yes.
Because there was a time whereby under the Chief Justice Mutunga, the JSC was under investigation by Parliament, and they refused to cooperate with Parliament.
True.
And it is only responsible as a state officer that where there is a part of an arm of government which is charged with the responsibility, for example, an oversight, and they say, we want to look at your finances. You can't throw tantrums and say, I'm not responsible to you. No, I mean, that is a public office, and you have to be responsible to Kenyans.
All right. Duncan, you have something to say, and as you say what we want to say, I also want you to comment about yesterday's summit in State House. Everybody was blaming everybody, and at the end of the day, the judiciary was, also on the blaming, end. And it's because they're not prosecuting these corruption cases. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has asked David Maraga to ensure that 600 cases that are in regards to corruption are expedited. Do you think that's tenable? And, what is it that Mutunga was not able to do that Maraga is like he has a silver bullet that now that he's in, now these corruption cases, finally people will start getting, prosecuted?
Betty, before I answer that, I just want to shortly allude to what my colleagues have said in response. And the issue is they are saying they're actually responding very well. Unfortunately, they're not responding on his behalf. If he had actually told Parliament, facing them in the eye, that yes, my role is administrative, I cannot interfere with that, I will give it to him. However, this is Parliament putting its demands. And you heard Duale say, we are giving you 100 days. If you don't do as we expect, we'll slash your budget.
But what is it that they expect? Maybe they're expecting that these corruption cases will be, done away with.
And exactly, do you solve that? Let's assume it's not done away with, or they do not meet the timelines. Do you solve it by slashing that budget? Is it even prudent for you to put that at this particular instance, that you will actually slash the budget if you don't do ABCD? That is exactly what these cartels do. Today it was Parliament, it was in open forum. Cartels actually do their work behind the tables, and they'll actually do the same, and we'll want someone who will say, regardless of what, whether it means getting the Chief Justice's seat or not, this is the position.
But Duncan, so what are you saying? Are you saying that David Maraga was not the most suitable candidate for this position?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. He has qualified,
Yes.
he is the Chief Justice, and we respect him for that. But ideally, once he has ascended to that seat, it behoves each of us to actually scrutinize and ensure that we put him to task.
Okay.
And even if we put him to task, it is within the ambits of the law.
Okay.
And that is why your question comes in handy at this particular point, in as far as the blame game is concerned.
Yes.
People will now look at him and expect him to be another Jesus Christ
Yes.
for this particular country.
Yes.
However, that will not be fair at all to him as a person.
Okay.
We have said he is only an administrative head. He cannot actually prefect each and every judge and tell them ABCD. However, within the law, there are responsibilities that are actually given to the Chief Justice in terms of ensuring that judgments are delivered within a certain period
Yes.
of time.
Yes.
If they are not, this particular judge is answerable to you.
All right. So that is
Ideally,
what is
Mutunga
going
didn't
to be.
actually do that,
Okay.
and that's why if we go towards that particular direction, he may have failed a bit. If he actually utilizes the instruments that he has, he may actually ensure, and in terms of policy direction, he may actually ensure that these cases are fast-tracked.
Expedited, okay.
However, as Justice Kehara indicated, it is very wrong to blame these particular courts for either granting people bail. It is a constitutional right. It is wrong to blame these courts when they acquit these particular people, because evidence, it is a court of law.
Yes, yes.
It
There-
is
there
what
are
is brought by
yes.
other people.
Yes.
If you bring a weak case, this judge has no option whatsoever than to acquit.
Okay.
And that is why Justice David Maraga is the Chief Justice today. Yet there was an accusation that he actually convicted a person who had
Yes.
been charged for murder, and he actually mutated it into manslaughter offense.
Okay. Wow. So I want us to continue with that conversation. But before then, let's just take a look at Willie Mutunga's track record and see what, David Maraga, should be bringing to the table. All right. So let's just turn our focus to the Super Bowl here and just get to see that. Willie Mutunga prides himself as, somebody who transformed the judiciary in Kenya. And we'll take a look at, the time that he took over office and the time that he left. What exactly was he able to do? So High Court stations increased from 14 to 34. Court of Appeal stations from 1 to 4. Judges increased from 53 to 136. Magistrates from 316 to 462. Kadhi courts for 15 to 56. First of all, I'd like to hear your reaction to this. Isn't this now, getting, justice to the mashinani, grassroots level?
I think one of the things that Mutunga actually achieved, and we have to give him credit for that, he actually was a Chief Justice for the people. His main concern was actually the common Wanjiku person.
Okay.
You realize with regard to...
Does that mean that, these other high-profile people were not really his premise? If he was really concerned with the Wananchi.
No, not really, but then a lot of his actions will qualify that statement.
Okay.
You realize that this is somebody who even went to the extent of speaking Sheng to relate to the people in the slum areas.
Yeah.
This is somebody who will even tweet and tell guys that tomorrow is a holiday, so you guys beware. We don't want you to be arrested. Our guys are not working tomorrow in courts. And then you realize devolving the courts, actually, that is what he used to say.
Yeah.
Devolving the courts actually, to some extent, makes accessibility to justice quicker, which is a constitutional right too. And then with regard to traffic offences, minor offences, he was so sure even bringing the courts up to the roadside and saying you don't have to bring this, the mobile courts. Yeah. This is somebody who, at least to a large extent, opened the court to the general public.
All right.
He deserves credit for that.
That's okay, fine. Moses, is that the same feeling you have?
I think Justice Mutunga achieved greatly on access to justice. Opening up high courts all the way to Turkana and some other places where there are no high court stations, and opening up even mobile stations at JKIA. He had the benefit of being the first Chief Justice and the implementation, to implement this constitution in terms of increasing, because under the previous regime, the law was very strict in terms of the number of judges, in terms of the budgetary allocation and all that. So he had that benefit, and he took that position or that opportunity to clearly be able to expand the number of court stations and all that. And also, another thing I would credit Justice Mutunga for is innovation.
Yes.
He was not a straitjacket sort of a guy. He was someone who would be open to ideas of having mobile courts, having instant fines by the roadside, and trying to digitize the register. The only thing I blame for him is that even Justice Kariuki yesterday in the Court of Appeal, in the State House Summit, was complaining that I am more about doing secretarial service than being a judge. I mean, you go to a court today, you reduce a judge to writing notes. Instead of that, is a very simple technology where we have stenographers. The judge is to listen and to be a judge. Let other people do that work. So I think that is also the next thing that Justice Honorable Maraga should be able to digitize the registry and to be able to have an ICT policy for the judiciary that is implemented.
All right, Duncan, I mean, now that Mutunga was able to increase, the numbers that we've seen, taken the, justice system to the grassroots level, do you think this is something Maraga now should concentrate on other things, other issues, like we'll be taking a look at cases backlog, which still are at a high? I think when he came into office, it was 1 million, but now they stand at 462,000. Do you think now that, we have this very many courts, in different places around the country, that now this should not really be the, the focus for Maraga? Because he mentioned that, taking the courts to the Wananchi level is one of the things he wants to do. But do you think he should be concentrating on other, stinging issues?
Betty, you rightly capture the issue. And in developed democracy, in good governance modes, it is actually a principle that you have to optimally use what you have before you actually think of adding or requesting for more. Justice Mutunga would have actually optimally used the infrastructure that we had and actually optimally utilize the human labor that we had in terms of judgeship and magistracy. What happened is that we focused more on the infrastructure, and we actually didn't focus on utilizing the human labor that is required in terms of optimally using it. We may have increased the judges and the magistrates gradually, but the problem is, even with this increase, are we using them optimally? Are they churning out their work at their judgments optimally? That will be, we may have many courts, we may increase so many courts, but if you're not optimally using it, we'll actually lose it. And that is what you rightly captured, that the current Chief Justice should actually strike a balance. Do we need more judges? And if we need more judges, are these ones that we have, are they working optimally? Do we have systems to ensure that we measure them, that we ensure that they work optimally? If there are other instruments that will actually, like the stenographs, which are already in courts in Nairobi and they're not being utilized, what do we need to do about them? That is actually the focus, and it will actually help both the big people and the small people that my colleague is talking about in access of justice.
All right. Moses, I'd like to hear your thoughts on fines. So we have, the courts in the grassroots level, but like I mentioned, the backlog is also one of the things that, Maraga talked about. And it's also one of the issues that came up during his vetting that, he had an issue with, churning out, rulings, so to speak. So delivering judgments, that's what I'm looking for. So I mean, when Mutunga took office, the backlog was 1 million, but now as it stands, it's about 462,000. So what is the one thing that Maraga should do to to ensure that these numbers go down? Because we keep also talking about this backlog.
I mean, 400 also is still quite a number, and I think Honorable Justice Maraga should continue with those judicial weeks of having to deal with backlogs of cases. But backlog of cases is a product of a larger system whereby it is it's complicit between the judiciary, the advocates, the parties, and so on. Because we need to look at why are cases delaying. Because there are people who file cases without intentions of prosecuting it to an end. There are people who bring criminal cases to court without intentions of finishing it, to fatigue people. That's why the judiciary should be able to come up with a case management policy. There is a case management legislation in Kenya today, but it is not properly implemented. But I think we need to look at it that when a case is filed, it should be fast-tracked and should be had within a maximum period of even 1 year, so that we cannot have cases of spanning into decades whereby the parties even don't know it was your father who filed it, it's passed on, it's now your children following it.
All right.
So there should be a way of making sure that there is efficiency in delivery of justice. Also coming back is that on the issue of infrastructure that my colleague has talked about, is that we have courts all over the country. And we've been focusing, the corruption that we've been talking about was corruption of judicial officers, that is the judges and magistrates. But there is a corruption which is becoming now a commonplace in the registries. If you go to a registry somewhere in Nyamira or Sotik or Kiambu, I mean, it is becoming a norm that for even advocates, you have to bribe to get services.
Really?
If it is difficult...
So the situation is worsening, that's what you're saying?
So if an advocate cannot be served, what about a common Mwananchi who comes and says that I want to have a look at my file? So it has now, they have even budgeted. You find that litigants, poor Mwananchi, have budgeted that this money, hii pesa ni ya kupatia karani ya kotini.
But that, will that really end? Because even that means that us as Kenyans...
Because now there is no leadership. You have to make sure that you have to make it difficult. If it is digitized, for example, if the registry is digitized, there is no way you are going to bribe. You just state your case number, it's produced, you pay for the printing charges, and that is it. So we have to look at how do we minimize this corruption, because they are on small scale, but the volumes are big, and it contributes now to the rot in the entire judicial system.
All right. Okay, so I want also us to discuss Philomena Mwilu, because if she's going to be, the next DCJ, that means they'll be working hand in hand, with the Chief Justice. But before then, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the character of Maraga. Remember during the interview, he said that he cannot work on Saturday, being a Seventh-day Adventist. And, very many people thought, like, really, I mean, if we have an election petition, a presidential election petition, you mean that, you will not come to work? I mean, what does, if you remember his interview, what are some of the things that he said, say about the kind of character that he is? For Willie Mutunga, I mean, he had that activism in him. For Maraga, what is that thing that, can help describe who he is? Okay, the student. Let's start with the student.
I think I have to take the bullet for the CJ today. I think when you describe Justice Maraga, the first thing that will strike you is somebody who is very calm. And as you people clearly put it, is a conservative, I think because of his religious background.
Yes.
This is somebody who is a very staunch SDA elder, as my learned colleague pointed out. And then with regard to him not sitting in on a Saturday, I think that is more of religion and personal decision. You remember even the former CJ had his own reservation. Remember the issue of the stud was a big deal.
Yeah.
He even say that you can keep your job, but I'm not removing my stud.
Yes.
That is a personal thing. But then,
so what does that say about somebody at the helm of the judiciary?
For him to come out clearly, knowing that the presidential petition should be handled within 14 days, that is given in the Constitution, and then tell you that if this thing is going to fall within Saturday, I'm not going to sit. This actually brings somebody who has a stand. Once he decides on something, isn't going to change. And then you remember, with regard to even the 14-day period, Justice Maraga heads the election committee of the judiciary, where he brings in the experience of handling election petitions. And one of the things that he actually asserted during his interview with the GSC was that the timeline that was given to resolve a presidential election was actually very small. It's a small window, which we agree in the legal profession. You remember with the Raila Odinga case last time, our affidavit is thrown out because of the time constraint.
Yes.
Then to some people, it will appear that justice has been denied, because when you throw out such a magnitude evidence and then you want people because of time constraint, then we have to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moses, do you want to add anything to that?
the right not to appear on Saturday, I think it's more of a constitutional right. It's a personal conviction,
Okay.
and I don't think it's a deal breaker. I mean, the Supreme Court can sit in a bench of 5, and that also shows that he has a personal conviction on his religious conviction. And I mean, my experience has shown that people who have convictions in one way or the other tend to be firm in the decision-making process. Even Mutunga himself said that he has to do, you either keep your job or I keep my stud.
All right.
So, so I think it speaks much. And as my colleague has said, that we haven't seen much of Maraga as an administrative position. But as he said, that he's been a leader, he's held leadership positions in other places. But what stands out that he's a very firm guy. If you appear before his court, he's very accommodative.
Yes.
It's not in terms of accommodating nonsense, but in terms of giving everyone, he's a fair guy.
Okay.
He's a fair person, and
Okay.
I believe that he will be able to be fair to everyone.
Duncan, very fast, he also mentioned that he has never taken a bribe and he will never take a bribe. Was that like a sigh of relief for at least like, one Kenyan who says that he's never and will never?
The problem with Kenyans is that none of them ever comes out to admit. All of them will say they were misquoted in one way or another when it was so open.
Yeah.
However, the fact that Justice Maraga has actually decided that he can swear by use of the Bible to the fact that he has never taken a bribe in his whole life is a very good thing. And it was a sigh of relief, as you actually say it, because now it's clear, because of his strong religious belief,
Yes.
he will not be someone who would volunteer to swear by the Bible. And it's not the first time he has done so. Even in 2012, when he was actually being probed by the vetting committee,
Yeah.
he actually still took that stand that he can swear by the Bible.
Okay.
And as a person, and even in the legal fraternity, in terms of his probity, we don't question that. He's an upright person. He's the best person in terms of his probity.
Okay.
The only problem is that we hope that there's something more, because that alone cannot achieve.
Duncan is very critical of Maraga. Yeah.
I know what Duncan is saying, that there is no jurisprudence that he has developed. But I say, we at Chief Justice, we are looking more than that.
Yeah.
We have 2 professors in the Supreme Court. And I'm not saying that he's a lesser of a judge, but I'm saying that we're not looking for a law school dean. We're looking for an administrator. And I think let's give him a chance for now.
Let's give him a chance